Hey everyone, this is Jordan with the Sith Saber Props, and I have something immensely special to show you all today. This is the world's shortest lightsaber staff. This is a double-bladed lightsaber with the length of a single hilt. For example, here's your Saberforge Fallen hilt, and as you can see, it is the same length as the Saberforge Fallen. A little larger hilt, and Ultra Sabers Bellicose. These are just my personal hilts I have right here, and this is a little larger, and this is a single blade. So this, in the length of a single-bladed hilt, you have two blades. Now, most of you might recognize the base of this. This is a classic Saberforge Sentinel hilt. This has been heavily modified in order to run with two blades, and just overall, aesthetically modified for a different visual feel for the hilt. So I've added two emitters, a completely new grip section, and what's more, I've fitted a very nice, very special crystal chamber inside the hilt. It has a double quartz crystal chamber right in here. So the quartz is actually formed into two separate, or two conjoined crystal points. And that gives a nice excuse in order to have the two blades. I'm a big expanded universe fan, Legends fan, so to me, I don't buy into Kyber crystals as much as I do, Adegan crystals, Ilum, Hurricane, or Opala crystals, and Diadium power cells running it all. So what would make sense to me is, one crystal here, one crystal here, similar to what Exar Kun or even Count Dooku has, where their crystal chamber is immediately below the emitter matrix. But, for the sake of having a crystal chamber in the saber, at least, I just added one right here in the choke point of the saber. Now, let's go ahead and just take a little visual run over the saber. So here's the first emitter, your custom emitter, and that's your blade plug right in here, matching blade plugs. Now, I designed this emitter based off of the power and control emitter design from the Savvy's Workshop lightsaber blade parts, which itself is heavily based off of the Inquisitor double-bladed emitter design, or even Darth Maul's, Rebels lightsaber has the similar emitter. But I really like the design, and for me, at least, Savvy's Workshop lightsabers are way too big. They're way too bulky and way too cartoonish. So I wanted something a little more low profile, but I still wanted to get the feel of that emitter because I just love its design so much. So I went ahead and made machined this little emitter section up here. And then we have the opposing emitter all the way down here. Now, it's similar in design, except instead of having, these two shrouds with these slits on the sides, you actually have four prongs with similar slits going down all of them. Now, this pommel emitter was designed to kind of replicate the actual emitter up here, the main emitter, but to also hide the fact that this is a double-bladed lightsaber. Really, the reason for having this type of saber design is to surprise your opponent. So there have been, of course, many people with lightsaber that they can go ahead and they can switch between single blade or double blades. Darth Maul, in fact, most double blade lightsabers can do it, but Darth Maul, of course, Cal Kestis from the Jedi Fallen Order game, Shadow Vow, I think that's his name from the Legacy continuity, who was Cade Skywalker's best friend, the blue Twi'lek Jedi from that era. And but really, this was designed, inspired by the lightsabers of Exar Kun and Teneb Kel. Teneb Kel being the Sith apprentice name for Darth Thanaton for the Star Wars The Old Republic MMO. In the comics Blood of the Empire, he is the main protagonist as a Sith apprentice, and his lightsaber featured in those comics is actually a standard hilt lightsaber, short lightsaber hilt, with two blades out of either end. Same with Exar Kun, who is, famously credited for designing the SaberStaff. In reality, he didn't make the first one, but his is widely recognized as the first model used in warfare. And that one was just a single lightsaber hilt with an replica emitter added to the pommel. So it ended up being a single hilt with 2 blades, and he was able to adjust and, turn on and off the power settings for the blades. Tana Bakel, on the other hand, this one's more heavily inspired by his. His lightsaber was asymmetrical in design. It was a very opportunistic weapon, but he was never depicted using it without both blades on. And that's kind of what I have going here, because I have a single soundboard setup. So I'm using a single Crystal Focus 10, 2 red, white RGB LEDs, and just a single activation switch and then auxiliary switch. So let's go ahead and just get this fired up. There's your crystal chamber. You can see some lights for either emitter. Trying to run through all the activation sounds. Let's put that kill key back in. Now, this saber is running Crystal Focus 10, like I said, but it's actually running the 2 LEDs, and how I have the kind of reverb sounding like there's 2 blades, and the dual ignition is I'm actually using the Genesis Custom Sabers of Mad Cow on the saberfont.com website. I'm using his Revenge font because he designed it to have an inferred second blade in the font. There's enough reverb, it sounds like there's a second blade, and it really works well for this. I made a custom ignition, or I modified all of his ignitions, and I went ahead and I just kind of added, so if I used power on 1, I added power on 2 to it and delayed it, and that way you have a delayed ignition sound. And I went ahead and did that for all the ignitions and the retractions. Some of them are more noticeable than others. But it works out really well. Now, how I was able to go ahead and fit another LED module down here is I actually have the speaker right up in here. And that was part of the reason why I used the Saberforged Sentinel hilt and modified it. I had it sitting around. I've had this thing for years, and it's been empty for a few years now. But you have the space right in here. And there's, originally I wanted to use these vents, but because you have the space right here, you have all this extra space up here for sound venting and electronics install. Originally, with your Saberforged Sentinel, you get your LED module installed all the way down here, and this is all just blade space, and it goes actually right up to here. The custom emitter adds a little bit more, but you have so much extra space right up in here that it, gives me a good excuse to modify the saber and to go ahead and put a speaker up here and the LED module up here. I used a Ultra Saber's LED module piece, which are longer and silver rather than the or they're not the longer and they're more brushed aluminum silver rather than the shorter custom Saber Shop LED modules, and that way those grooves are filled in. I don't really like windowed emitters in a lot of sabers because you end up having so much extra space where there's no technology in the saber, and you end up having some sort of emitter design up here to make it look like there's technology at the top of it, and it just doesn't work well. So really this came out as an opportunistic modification. And that's really, it was inspired by Tana Bakel's lightsaber, which was the same, and Exar Kun's, which was the same. They were opportunistic lightsabers designed to go ahead and surprise enemies with the appearance of a second blade in what should otherwise be a single hilt lightsaber. Personally, I really, really, really love how this came out. I'm immensely happy with it. Let's go ahead and take out these blade plugs and take a quick look at those, and then we'll pop a blade in here. We'll pop 2 blades in here. So the blade plugs are exactly the same on either end. There you go. And let's go ahead and actually just turn this on real quick to show you the LEDs. So like I said, both ends are red, red, white. So I'm actually running a total of 6 LEDs in this saber. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so far off a single charge, I've had quite a lot of hours using this. I mean, well, I've had quite a few days using it. It's running a 3600 milliamp battery. I almost ended up doing 2400 milliamps, and I realized that would have less of a charge. So I'm running a 2600 milliamp 18650 battery, and it's working out great so far. Let's look at that crystal chamber again. Now, some of you might call me a sinner for this, but I actually used some NeoPixel pins inside the crystal chamber. I used 1, 2, 3. I used about 7 of them, and they add just some good detail to the interior of a crystal chamber. I found it very opportunistic to use those. I just had some extras lying around for a 7/8 inch NeoPixel module that I wasn't going to use, so I decided to use those, and it came out great. So let's go ahead and get a blade in here. So there you have it. There's my custom SaberStaff. This is definitely a type of install I'm going to do again in the future. Very limited quantities. I'm very happy with how this install came out. It is an extremely unique lightsaber hilt. I haven't seen any other saber that uses 2 blades off a single board in such a small package. I've seen a few, of course with Trident you can do cross guards off of a single board, and that's all in a small saber, but most of the time I haven't seen any where it's in what's called an archaic saber staff based on a double-bladed lightsaber design in a single hilt package, and it ends up being a very enjoyable weapon. It's more enjoyable to use than any other saber staff I've used in my time. Right here I have a Savage Apprentice hilt I'm working on. I just need to end up fixing some NeoPixel issues with it, and then I'll send it back to the client. It's just a repair job. I didn't do the install on this, but you can see, you know, based off of just the length of this hilt, that it comes to about, you know, this hilt is about half the length. If we just go from emitter tip to emitter tip, yeah, it's about half the size of the Savage press saber. If we go ahead and we hold up a Korbanth Obi-Wan Kenobi that I have here still, you can see that's just barely longer than the Korbanth Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, you know, imagine holding a standard lightsaber and just imagine two blades coming out of it, and that's what you have with this. It's immensely comfortable. The new custom grip section, I removed the leather grip, I've added these T-grips and custom grip pieces. That's extremely comfortable to hold. The crystal chamber, it doesn't dig into your fingers, the metal's sanded down, and that's extremely comfortable. And overall, this is easily the most fun I've ever had using a lightsaber. All that's on here is just the Revenge sound font. I only have it with the single color in Revenge, so you know, you can really only change blade profiles or the sound of the saber, how to move the volume, but it's very enjoyable nonetheless. I love using it, and I'm extremely happy with how it came out. I believe I'm going to make an Exar Kun saber in the future, just to have a dedicated blue, you know, antithesis to this. And if I make those, I might go ahead and gauge interest in it and do a run of those, a small run, for, you know, from some people if, you know, interest is high enough, and maybe then we can get into making a small run of these sabers as well. Teneb Kel saber. I'm not going to use the same Saberforge Sentinel base as this. I'll do it all custom, but you know, I'll definitely be interested in doing more runs of archaic SaberStaffs. I think it's a good, you know, type of saber that no one's made yet. I've seen one SaberStaff like this, even close to this, and that was just an image that ended up having, you know, a two emitters on a shorter hilt, but it was just random, you know, MHS parts, and it was like 6 years ago. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice day, and may the Force serve you well.